What's up guys, and welcome back to another video in the Curious Classes. Today we're going to be doing this USACO 2018 December contest bronze problem, and it's called mixing milk. Fabulous. Alright, so just like last time, if you haven't seen my last USACO video, then be sure to click right here. It'll pop up somewhere. So somewhere like over there, but also, just like last time, there'll be timestamps, and you can just skip through the video. And also, like last time, we'll be first discussing the problem, then designing it, and finally, we'll be coding it. Alright, so let's go in. So, I'm just gonna let you read the problem for a couple of. Just read the problem. Alright, so you should have read the problem by now, and then I'm going to just talk about like what he wants. So we want to tell Farmer John how much milk would be in each bucket after he finishes all 1,000 pours from going bucket 1 into bucket 2, then blah blah blah. Alright, so now we have the input format, which you don't really need to read until we start coding it. So let's actually go into the design process of what we're gonna start doing. So let's actually pull up a canvas really quick. Alright, so essentially we have 3 buckets. One bucket. Ooh, that looks like a fat bucket. All right, bucket 1, bucket 2, and then bucket 3. Jesus Christ, my drawing is horrible. I'm actually just gonna take this. Oh, whoops. Bucket 2, and then bucket 3. So essentially, all we really need to see, or all we really need to know, is what cases will there be. So there can be 2 cases. There can be a case where the capacity of this, or the amount in one bucket, is gonna overflow this other bucket. So let's say this is M1, and then this is M2, and this is M3. So that just represents the amounts in each bucket. So let's just say that the amount in this one is greater than the amount in this one. That means we can only put like a little bit of M1 into M2, and we'll have leftover in M1. Since if we put all of M1 into M2, or sorry, all of M1 into the capacity, so this will actually be a different one. So we'll actually make this the capacity of the bucket 2. Then we will then essentially, if M1 is greater, the amount is greater than the capacity in this, it will overflow. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. And we can do that by creating a minimum operand. And what essentially a minimum operand does is it returns the minimum of 2 values. So if you put 4 and 5 into a minimum operand, it'll return 4, since 4 is the least amount. So essentially what we can do is we can use a minimum to say M1 and C2 minus M2. And what this says is, alright, we have the first bucket. We have the amount in the first bucket, and we have to see, alright, what is the least amount that we can pour into the next bucket? Is it just the whole amount of bucket 1, or is it the capacity of the next bucket minus the amount in the next bucket that we can pour? And this is going to be very helpful because we're going to actually use this minimum operand when deciding like the amount in a sort of in some part of code. So essentially, this is all we really need to know, and this will be really helpful, as I said. Another thing we need to understand is what are some of like how are we gonna basically simulate this 100 times. And simulating something 100 times is actually very easy. Like sometimes you could get to simulate something that's like much larger, like maybe 1,000 times. But this time we only need to simulate it 100 times. So to do that, we usually create a helper function. And a helper function that we could use in this instance could be something like pour. And essentially what pour would do is it would just simulate one bucket pouring into the next bucket, and then we can simulate this pour function 100 times to show what's the final amount in each bucket. So now that we have all of these, basics down, let's actually start coding it. Alright, so to code this, just like last time, I'll be using Replit. So let's go into Replit, and now what we're going to do is I'm just going to first, let's clear this. So basically my replit doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is after I code this, I'm just going to copy it into my VS Code, and then I'll download it, and then I will actually create or submit it to USACO, and then you'll see the final results. But anyways, let's just start coding this. So we have to get in all the input, right? We have to get in all the integers, the input. But before we do that, let's start with our basics, like creating your main. Alright, and then we have to obviously bring in the fstream, right? So if stream fn, and what was this? What were we calling it? Mix milk dot in. Alright, so I'm just gonna swoop that in there. Alright. Alright, and then this will be obviously the same thing, but a few things different, like this will be fout, and then this will be offstream, and then this will be out. Okay, boom. Now what we do is we just bring in all the integers. So the integers will be, what is it? M1, C1, M1, blah blah blah, right? So we bring in M1. I'm actually going to do it in the same ways we're going to bring it in. So basically, I'm going to create the integers in the same way that we're going to read them in. So C1, M1, C2, M2, C3, and M3. And then I'm going to read these in right on the next line. But then I'll break them up. So I'll basically put this right here, put this right here, and then just read them in. And that's the way we're supposed to get them in, right? We're supposed to get the capacity first and then the milk. Yeah, alright. Yeah. Alright, cool. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we're going to C1, M1, C2, M2. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create that pour method that we were talking about. So remember in the design process, if you don't remember, I'm just going to quickly show you again. So remember this pour method that we were talking about right here? Essentially, this pour method is going to have a number of parameters, and that will basically be simulating one bucket being poured into another bucket. So we only have to define the parameters for like one capacity and one amount of bucket, and another capacity and another amount of another bucket. We don't have to do all three buckets, but just two buckets. And why not pick the first two? So let's just pick these first two to go into our parameters. And the parameters we'll be defining. So first, actually just create that. And this is going to be a void method because obviously we're not going to return anything. We're just using it as like a helper function. So void pour, and then we'll have int m1. And you're supposed to use and after each. Int m1, int and c1, right? Oh, actually it's supposed to be int and c1, int and c2 or m2, and then now we just take this and we just change the variables, obviously. So this would be c2 and m2 because we're getting the capacity first and then this should be m1. The capacity first and then the amount, right? Alright, so basically in this we're going to create a amount variable, and what that amount variable is going to do is it's going to do that minimum operand we were talking about. So let's go back to that minimum operand, and that essentially is this. So let's just write that in our code. So amount equals min m1 comma m, is it c2 comma m2, right? C2 minus m2. And alright, so this is the amount, right? This is how much we're gonna put, or what amount we're gonna put into another bucket. So then it's just common sense to know that when you take one thing and you put it into another, like if you take like a, let's say, glass full of water, and you pour that glass full of water into another glass, like halfway of water, you know that the second glass is gonna go up. And second glass is gonna go up. Is going to increase with the water it was going to increase with the amount of water inside, and then the first glass is going to decrease the amount of water inside. So that's essentially what we're going to do on the next line. So we're going to essentially say that the amount, which is essentially m1, so let's just, all right, so the amount in m1 will be decremented by whatever amount, right? And then the amount in m2 will increment by whatever amount, right? Since we're taking this, since we're pouring quantity decreases, pouring quantity increases. All right, now what we do, and by the way, this algorithm is to include the minimum. If you were confused on why we need this algorithm to use this minimum operand, whenever you're using min or max, you always have to have algorithm. So now let's actually simulate this 100 times. Now, since there's 3 buckets, we can simulate that happening 100 times by doing it 33 loops, right? Since 33 times 3 is 99, but we'll have one left, and that one left is going to be the 100 pour, which will be bucket 1 into bucket 2. So we'll have an extra bucket 1 into bucket 2 outside of whatever for loop we're declaring. So now what we're going to do is we'll create that for loop, right? Alright, so int I equals 0. So I is less than 33, right? 3, we're just going to increment I by 1. Boom! We love for loops, don't we? Alright. Now we're just going to pour essentially every bucket into the other one. So we're going to pour, first we'll start off with the first bucket into the second bucket. So we're going to pour C1, comma C2, comma C2, comma M2, comma M, C2, comma C, Jesus, my typing, oh my god, M1, C2, and M2. So what this is doing is we're pouring bucket 1 into bucket 2. So this is pouring bucket 1, the quantities of bucket 1, into the quantities of bucket 2. And we're going to do this 3 times, but obviously for the respective buckets. So this will be C2 into M2 and C3, M3. And this would be C3, M3, C1, M1, and this is going to be pouring bucket 2 into bucket 3 and pouring bucket 3 into bucket 1. So this essentially is the whole simulation right here. This is what we're simulating. And then obviously we have the last bit of pour, which is the bucket 1 into bucket 2. So we're going to take this. I'm going to copy this and put it right here. And then now all we do is we just F out the answers. So F out whatever amount in each. So M1 and L, M2 and L, M3. M1 and L, M2 and 3. Alright, boom. We are done. Hopefully we're done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to essentially copy this into VS Code. So I'm just going to quickly copy this whole thing. Alright. Copy this into VS Code. Alright. And now you guys get to see the whole submitting process. How how hard it is, how stressful it is. So you choose file, mix. Alright, here we go, moment of truth. Grading in progress. Hey, there we go. There we go. Alright, boom, first try. That rarely ever happens. Like you saw in my last video, I had to correct like 3 things. But anyways, thank you so much, guys. One thing I wanted to say at the end of this video was thank you so much for 100 subscribers. Coming when I was just started out, 100 subscribers was such a surreal thing. I'm so glad I hit 100. I could have done it without you guys. So thank you so much for that. If you did enjoy this USACO video, please make sure that you say that. Please make sure that you comment down that you enjoyed it and that you'd like to see further videos like this. And if you have any like certain USACO problems in the bronze division, because so far or currently I can't solve anything outside of the bronze division, please put whatever you want to get solved, and I'll definitely try to make a video on that. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.